It is morning on the 19th of May, 1536. The air is calm and clear, almost a mockery of the dark business at hand. The air carries the scent of fresh-cut grass and apple blossoms. A gentle breeze does nothing to soothe the cold unease of those gathered to witness this historic event. The sun shines brightly, but it does not feel warm. It is as if the heavens themselves are holding their breath. The crowd gathered here is not the usual rabble that gathers at public executions. The gates of the tower are closed, and only a select few are permitted to witness this solemn event. Noblemen and officials stand with grim faces. A low murmur, a whispered mix of prayer and speculation, is the only sound they make. There is no joy in their eyes, no cheering, only a heavy acceptance. This is not a spectacle for the common people to celebrate. This is an official, somber affair, and all who stand here know they are witnessing something unprecedented. A great stillness settles over the courtyard as the clock strikes 9. A faint footfall, a rustle of silk. The Queen has appeared. She walks with a steady, quiet dignity that surprises the gathered witnesses. Her dark, grey gown, trimmed with ermine, is a stark contrast to the grim purpose of the platform which she now approaches. Her hair is covered by a small white coif, and her expression is not one of fear, but of profound solemnity. She does not look at the witnesses, but straight ahead, as though her mind is already in another place. She ascends the scaffold, her posture straight and her chin high. Her voice, when she speaks, is clear and steady. She declares she has come to die as the law demands. She speaks of her love for the king, not with bitterness, but with a quiet acceptance. She prays for him that he may long reign over this kingdom, and she asks the gathered crowd to pray for her soul. There is not a single tear in her eye. She is a queen to the very last moment. After her short, powerful speech, she turns to face the block. She kneels, and her ladies-in-waiting, tears streaming down their own faces, take their final leave of her, covering her hair with a small cloth before they do so. The French executioner stands ready, his sword gleaming. It is said the king has paid him handsomely, that he might carry out the sentence with speed and skill, an act of mercy compared to the common axe. The man moves with a swift, professional grace. And then, with one blinding flash of steel, it is done. The king's will is complete. A collective gasp from the crowd is the only sound, quickly followed by a hush that is heavier than any silence before. The most powerful woman in England is gone. Her body is swiftly carried away, and the great, dreadful silence of the morning returns. England has executed its queen, Anne Boleyn.
Hello, and welcome back to That History Brit. I'm your host, and today I'm incredibly excited to be joined by our resident history expert, the brilliant Dr. Alice Holloway. Hello there, Alice. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It's a real treat to be here. We're delving into a story that is probably one of the most dramatic, most shocking, and honestly, most theatrical moments in all of British history.
Absolutely. We're talking about the rise and fall of Anne Boleyn, a woman who rose from relative obscurity to a position of immense power, only to fall from it in the most brutal way imaginable. It's a story of love, obsession, and a king's legendary temper. It's a tale that forever changed England, all because one man, King Henry VIII, desperately wanted a son. Now, before we get into the details, strap in, because we're heading back to Tudor England, a place where life was complicated, and a king's bad mood could literally make you lose your head.
The king and his great problem.
So, Alice, let's start with our main man, Henry VIII. He's this big, boisterous, larger-than-life character. At the start of this story, he has a very, very big problem on his hands. That problem being not having a son, correct?
He does. For over 2 decades he had been married to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, but had failed to produce a male heir who would live past infancy. Only one child, a daughter named Mary, survived into adulthood. This was seen as a genuine political and personal crisis. The fear of a war of succession, a repeat of the bloody Wars of the Roses that had ended just a generation earlier, was a very real thing for everyone in the kingdom. Henry was absolutely obsessed with the idea of a male heir.
A terrifying thought for the king and the future of the crown. And it was around this time he meets Anne Boleyn.
That's right. Anne was a lady-in-waiting at court, but she was completely unlike the other women. She was intelligent, witty, fashionable, and she absolutely refused to become Henry's mistress. Her fierce independence and sharp mind completely captivated Henry. She was a different kind of woman for a different kind of king. He fell madly in love and decided he simply had to have her as his wife, no matter what it took.
But there was a small, Pope-sized problem. The leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Clement VII, said, "Nope, you cannot divorce your wife of 20 years and marry her lady-in-waiting."
It was more complicated than just that. The Pope was, at the time, a virtual prisoner of Catherine of Aragon's nephew, the Holy Roman Emperor. So the Pope simply could not, and would not, give in to Henry's demands. A simple no from a very powerful person became a global political standoff.
So he had his hands tied. But Henry was the King of England, and kings do not like having their hands tied. He threw one of his famous tantrums and did something even bigger than a divorce.
He did indeed. On Henry's command, England broke away from the Catholic Church, and in 1534 the Act of Supremacy was passed. This act declared Henry to be the supreme head of the Church of England, giving him the authority to grant his own divorce and marry Anne. This wasn't just a simple breakup. It was a religious revolution that changed the course of European history forever.
The fall from grace.
So, Anne Boleyn became queen in 1533, and everything seemed great, until she gave birth to a girl, a daughter named Elizabeth. Henry was, to put it mildly, not impressed. He wanted a son, and he wanted one yesterday.
And after 3 years of marriage, with no male heir in sight, Henry's eye began to wander again. This time his focus landed on a new woman, Jane Seymour, who was much quieter and more agreeable than Anne. Henry now faced a different kind of problem. He couldn't just create another new church to get another new divorce.
So he needed a different, more permanent solution to rid himself of Anne?
Exactly. His minister, Thomas Cromwell, was ordered to begin proceedings against Anne. The charges they came up with were completely fabricated, but they were designed to be so shocking that no one would dare defend her. They included having affairs with multiple men, including the court musician, the king's own best friend, and her own brother. This was a charge of incest, which was completely unheard of in the courts. The accusation alone was designed to destroy her reputation completely.
And there were even claims that Anne had practiced witchcraft, or was even a witch herself, weren't there?
There were. The so-called proof was that she supposedly had a 6th finger on one of her hands. In reality, she probably had a small mole, or maybe a tiny birthmark. But in Tudor England, in a climate of fear and superstition, that was all the evidence they needed to accuse her of bewitching the king into marriage. The entire trial was a total sham, with no real evidence, and Anne was found guilty of treason and sentenced to death.
The price of a prince and the ghost of a queen.
As we've heard, Anne Boleyn's execution took place on May 19th, 1536. She walked to the scaffold with immense dignity, and even in her final moments, she was every bit a queen. But what happened next is almost as shocking as the execution itself. Alice?
It truly is. Henry was already planning his next wedding. The very next day, his betrothal to Jane Seymour was announced, and they were officially married just 11 days after Anne's death. He showed no remorse, no sadness, just an unwavering focus on getting his male heir. The court itself was in a state of shock, with many people unsure of what to say or who to trust.
Talk about moving on fast. Henry really didn't hang around, did he? And Alice, what's the final twist in this tale?
Well, Henry did get his son with Jane Seymour, a boy named Edward. But Edward, unfortunately, was a sickly child, and he died at a young age. He never had children of his own, which meant Henry's beloved male line ended with Edward, when he died aged just 15. All that trouble, all that chaos, all those executions, for nothing.
There is a measure of poetic justice for poor Anne at the end of this, though, isn't there? The daughter she had with Henry.
The daughter Henry didn't want, the one whose own mother was executed when she was just an infant, grew up to be one of the most powerful and successful monarchs England has ever known, Queen Elizabeth I. She was a sharp, intelligent ruler who reigned for over 40 years, proving that a female ruler was not just possible, but could lead the country into its golden age. Had Henry known how successful his daughter would be, history may have been very different.
So, what did we learn today? We learned that even a king with all the power in the world can't control the course of history. And we learned a very important lesson. Don't mess with powerful ladies. This whole incredible story proves that the strongest women can defy all the odds and forever change the course of history. That's all for this episode. A big thank you for listening, and as always, my thanks to Dr. Alice Holloway for her insights. Find more of us wherever you get your podcasts, and now we have a YouTube channel, at That History Brit. We do videos there too, so be sure to check us out. This episode was written and produced by Wally Daniels.